Also, okay, so hi everybody. Welcome to New Earth Consciousness. I'm here with Carolina Vélez, and yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation because Carolina's background is way different than where she is now. Like she had a radical shift in, I mean, I would almost say an identity or just a huge
Yeah.
life shift.
Mhm.
So, um, so Carolina is an astrologer, but before that, she was in the corporate world. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and yeah, Carolina, she approaches astrology in a unique way, and so we're going to talk about that. But before we go into your amazing work right now, I would love for you to share with people that are watching. Yeah, where were you before all of this astrology stuff started to come into your life? You had a very different experience.
Sure. Yeah. I love talking about my past because it's such a drastic change. And you're right, it's a different personality, different all of it. So in my early 20s, I got the clue that the internet was going to change all of what we had to say about the world. I had that realization, and so me being the courageous person, I moved to New York City because that's at the time was that one of the big hubs of the development of what was happening in the space of high tech world or advertising things of that nature. And so I moved without a job. I was in my 20s. So I moved up to New York City. I'm sorry, there's like some things happening on my desktop here. I moved to New York City with my partner at the time and just embedded myself in the scene and found myself landing over time, like within like a year or yeah, within about a year or two, in one of the largest advertising agencies in the world. And I started working for IBM at the time doing digital strategy, digital marketing. And this was very early on. Like there was no schooling for it.
Oh,
There
wow.
weren't really any mentors for it. It was us in the at the edge of the field trying to bring the old way of doing marketing from a paper land, right? Remember the yellow pages?
Yeah,
Like
right. Yeah,
right. And that was your business plan was to have it in the
totally.
yellow pages.
Yeah, you just went through the yellow pages. Were you just going through yellow pages and like calling
Yeah,
people?
and
Yeah.
calling people, right? Exactly. And those who are significantly younger were like, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Is that like a separate type of like Facebook that
Yeah.
happens to be yellow?" Well, very similar, except that it was really, really thick and it was regional and sometimes even smaller than that based on the community. And so, yeah, I that was the beginning and that was my path, and then I thought that was going to be my path, but even then I had this like small little voice of like, this is just seems so lacking depth, because for me a lot of what happens in the marketing space is very shallow, right? The objective for most of marketing is to sell you something whether you need that something or not. And this was before the idea of corporate responsibility came around, of like having some sort of conscious way of their impact on the world.
Mm.
And so, yeah, that progression of me working in this space only got bigger. So I bigger agencies, bigger opportunities, and eventually, fast forward, almost, yeah, 20 some years, I'm now at that point in my 40s working for Intel, and I have this huge awakening and realization all along that no, like I can't continue doing this type of work because it felt so like it wasn't fulfilling soul wise for me. And I realized that money didn't mean anything. Like and actually it does not mean anything. It's just a
Yeah.
form of an exchange. We place meaning on it. And I couldn't eat, money to be satisfied in my soul. Like there's not enough money to do that. And most people will tell you that who reach like high levels of success for
Mhm.
that reason alone end up being completely soul, deprived. They still find themselves like a big hole in their lives and they can't like name it. and they can't see it, but they'll see the ramifications of it. Um, so yeah, that's when I left my job at the time, because I had an opportunity to leave it with a package, which is normal in this space. But it was not normal for someone from like myself who had reached the top of the career to say, and then I'm out. Peace out. Like, I
Yeah.
don't care how much money you throw at me or what title or what teams, or it just wasn't enough. And the scary part was, yeah, like making that decision and then not having anything at the other side. Like, I didn't have a new place to go to. I didn't have a desire to find anything. I completely shut that down. I was like, the idea of me continuing on in any sense anywhere near this space, I would make me ill. So yeah, starting around that age, everything shifted, everything started to change, who I was, my friendships, my interests. And I just allowed myself to like that pursue that heart center that most of us are not really seeing in society, which is like whatever lights you up in the heart, do that. And
Right.
people are
Yeah.
like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's just the kid in you that wants to be seen, that wants to be heard, that wants to play, that wants to relax, that wants to do nothing.
Hmm.
We don't give enough space for that in our exploration of who we should be or can be in this world. And yeah, that was the beginnings of me exploring more of this area that I was always curious about, but felt like there was so much taboo, which is the exploration of the occult and the studies of the occult and the unknowns and these ancient rituals and texts and knowledge that um we sort of poo-poo on because that's old, right? And what could we possibly learn from these things? And once I went down that rabbit hole, I realized like how much is connected.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
right? Like you start like how numerology is connected to other practices and how all of these and back in ancient times, people studied these things, colors, resonance of color, resonance of the plant to the stars, of our body to the stars, like everything goes back to the cosmos in some. And so I have to wonder like, okay, well, how did we all come about? Like, how were we as humans created? We've heard many stories, and to me, they're just stories because I'm not 100% sold on any of them.
Yeah.
And most people would say, like, oh my God, okay, you're so anti science. Well, let me tell you, I went to school for biochemistry. And I was hardcore science. Now I'm more like I want to give more cr- credence to the idea of the mystery of the things that we don't know. I mean, it's why we have the placebo effect when medicines are tested and they can't make sense of the placebo effect.
Right. Right.
And for me, that's like, why aren't we looking at that? Because the test results generally are just enough to scrape by to give it the state of approval. But there's so much that still remains in the placebo that we just never ask ourselves, like, what's truly happening? Like, our minds can make us do many things.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And, quantum physics and all of that is pointing to, this fact that our reality is not what we think it to be, and
Right.
it's extremely malleable, so I'm curious about, so so I'm hearing like, okay, like all this interest in and I'm seeing it too, this kind of resurgence of the guarded mysteries, things, the mysteries of the past that were only kind of locked away for only like certain initiates, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's the best word I can think of, initiates essentially. And now that information is basically, but thanks to the internet, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
out for anyone to just
Right.
like learn about. It's not so secret.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm curious about the relationship of astrology with what you're talking about, because And I don't know much about astrology. I mean, I know like this much. I mean, I have, other friends that like to delve into it and I listen to it from other people. Um, and it seems, and I'd be curious to hear your perspective, but what I'm hearing right now, like astrologically speaking, the astrology is showing that, like, yeah, we're going through this huge shift. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you want to talk about that and like weave
Mm.
it in, like what
Yeah,
is astrology for you? Like what are you
yeah.
seeing? Yeah, and just
So astrology is a fascinating tool as well as a language and an art and a science all combined. And what it does, it studies the correlations between the planetary movements and human behavior and events here on Earth. And that study has mapped out archetypes and cycles. And these archetypes and cycles are mapped out in your birth chart, right? So your chart has a baked in code blueprint of activation and it makes who you are. And when you're born, you have this birth chart that then experiences what we call transits. And transits are essentially like, where's the planet right now? Where are planets now? And how are they interacting with your chart? And so now imagine that on, like, a village level, a town level, a society, a country, and, a global level. And so we're all going through the same planetary shifts, the same planetary changes, but at our individual special snowflake level.
yeah.
And that shift is inevitably a consciousness shift because I believe that's why we're here. I believe that the whole reason why we incarnate into this planet is to evolve as a human, and that mission is at a different at a soul level, right? And some souls come in for a completely different mission than others, and that's completely okay. I don't think we realize that we all have a different mission here, and not all of us are here to be like grand.
Right. Right.
Like, everybody's like assumes like that's the mission. No, some of us are like literally meant to be farmers.
Right.
And so the shift in consciousness, so it happens all the time. That's what people forget. Like, is this truly that unique compared to what's happened in the past? Yes, in some senses it is. Why? Because when the planets move in their cycles, and if you know math, you understand, like, if things are shifting in different tempos,
Hmm.
and then when they connect at specific configurations based on those tempos that happen every so often, then it makes a marker that we haven't experienced in a long time or ever as humans.
Right.
And it could go back as like 1,000 years or more. So right now, a lot of people talk about the Aquarian age and how much we're there. And
Hmm.
I would say like we're at the beginning and more of the crumbling of the old versus in the middle of the Aquarian age. We're nowhere near the middle of
Nowhere
the
near the
Aquarian age.
middle. No,
No,
right.
no,
I think
that's
we can
like
all
another
concur.
500 years out. Like, we're not going to see it. You and I will not see this shift.
Yeah.
And who knows what that shift is. There's a lot of romanticizing around Aquarius, and it we want to, right? The humans want the best of
Right.
everything,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
But we're humans, and humans have many sides, including the sides that we don't want to share with others. And Aquarius has a side that others don't want to see. That authoritarian nature that we're experiencing right now in the collective is that it is Aquarius, as well as the need to rebel. But that need to rebel could be done in such a way where you don't agree with it,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
Because they're going to rebel anyway. So all people are at this moment being, and this is because of Pluto being in Aquarius right now for a long time. It's pushing, and Pluto is the planet, and even people are going to like, oh, it's not yes, it's a planet in astrology, and it shows us where we need to do deep transformation. through like analyzing of, say, the power struggles in society, but it does it in a very slow manner. Okay. And
Mm,
this excavation, and it will excavate everything. And at the beginning of the cycle, we had sadly the assassination of that CEO for United Health.
yeah.
That right there is that archetype of the Aquarius community of the people saying F you to the
Mm,
kings and queens, right?
yeah.
Leo,
Yeah.
Aquarius and Leo back and forth.
Yeah.
Now, most people would say, hell yeah, they deserve it. I personally don't believe we should impose and want death on others. Like, for
Yeah.
me, spiritually, it's like I can't get there,
No.
but I get the sentiment, right? We're done with being oppressed. And
Right.
so that's the struggle. And so we need to figure out how to do this so don't lose our humanity.
That's
And
the would you say that's kind of like the collective lesson that we're having to face right now? Because it's like otherwise we're just going to go back into the cycle, right? Like we're
yeah,
just going to go back into this cycle of war and, power over. It's like it's just going to keep going. Like at what point does it stop? Or we go like, yeah, okay, maybe that, yes, that is wrong, what's happening, but what is our response going to be so
right.
that we don't just kind of perpetuate harming each other and creating all this karma, right? Like to just so, and I'm guessing astrology, I'm sure astrology points to karmic cycles and so forth. Is karma part of that?
Yeah, there are astrologers who speak to karmic cycles, who
Yeah.
studying it from an evolutionary astrology perspective, and they look at Pluto, the North and South Node, as well as the Moon as like key pieces in that space. Yeah, and you can look at the chart at many different ways. And here's the part we have to remember: the United States has a chart, so do each of its leaders, right? So everything in the world that has taken breath of sorts, right? Your dog, the buying of your house, when you got married,
Yeah.
all of it has a chart. So this means that China,
Yeah.
Russia, all these other places also have charts. And so they're living their karmic whatever cycles, they're living through their own cycles as well. And so this is where it's like we have to remember that we live now in a global community and we can't remove ourselves from that. We are dependent on that. We're seeing whatever collapse is happening with the climate, and
Mm,
that will only push these issues more to the forefront, right? And so I believe the kings and queens are really like holding on for dear life because they see the writing on the wall.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
They know what's happening. They're not foolish.
Right.
And so they're just trying to buy time of how much more can they gather up their resources, their power before it really just collapses. Now, that could happen in the next few years. And there I believe that we're moving into not a state of peace, more of disarray and chaos before we get to that.
Yeah.
I think that there's enough here, there's enough junk that has to be cleared before we can move into like some sort of peacemaking.
Mm,
But then, I wonder, I mean, you look at situations like the Middle East who live in war.
yeah.
So maybe that's what they've chosen. Maybe that's their thing.
You mean that's how they're dealing with all of it. Like that's
No,
the chaos or
maybe that's their astrology
oh,
to
their astrology. Got it.
continuously in
Right.
in battle, right? To have these phases where they're having to assert their independence, their sovereignty wherever they are. And their nature of doing that is very warlike. It's very Mars oriented.
Hmm.
And then there are countries in this world who don't engage.
Right. Yeah.
And that to me is the spectrum of astrology. It gives you an understanding like,
Right.
oh, okay, this person's not here for that. That's not what they're made for.
Right. It's like I'm curious, like have you ever looked at a chart for Bhutan? It's like this peaceful
Right.
country that has like what do they call it? The happy instead of the gross national product, it's the happiness. I don't know, they
Mhm.
actually measure happiness instead of,
Yeah.
income or whatever, or how much money
Yeah.
you're making.
I haven't been there. I know that I've always wanted to go. I know that they are very strict with their borders. You can't just come in and like do whatever.
Yeah,
I do know that.
yeah.
Yeah, the ancients astrologers mapped out the entire planet and basically uh defined its quote unquote vibration. I give it the name of vibration, but it basically said like in this region, this area will be more like Libra. So what does Libra care about? They care about balance and harmony, which
Right.
means that they will go after and make sure that one
That's
side has to be rebalanced to
their
hit the
focus.
balance.
That's what their focus is. Yeah,
Right,
interesting.
exactly. And the opposite sign of Libra is Aries. So sometimes they will move into that Aries nature of war in order to achieve their justice.
Yeah.
So yeah, the internet has only made any issue around the humans to a whole nother level of like crazy, of obsession, of misinformation, um,
Hmm.
misguidedness. Astrology is getting a lot of it. It's only going to continue to get more attention just because of things being uh, activated, right? Aquarius is the studies of astrology. It's associated with that. So having a
Oh,
planet there,
Aquarius is itself,
yeah,
even as
mm-hmm.
an age.
Yep, yep,
Interesting.
yeah, and because it talks about the future, and Uranus is also a planet that people will track in a chart to see if there's any potential astrological like tendencies for them in the future as a study. So yeah, I don't I don't spend too much time in thinking whether this is the Aquarian age or not. I spend more time helping people understand that you are living a chart that has its gifts and challenges, and that you are living in a cycle within a cycle and a cycle. Like this is why certain things repeat for yourself, and it's why certain things come up for review because it's time.
Interesting. So yeah, I've always been, how does getting a natal chart reading, or if, someone works with you, and I mean, I've had readings done before, and it's always kind of interesting how, like, in my chart it's very clear, like, okay, when you turn 50, like, it's definitely like you're going into a Venus cycle, for example. And then looking at the, so there's like the overall chart, there's like yearly charts, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
like the month, there's all these different cycles of time. Like, how do you equip people, or how do you guide people to be able to use this tool so that they're like, I'm guessing the aim or the goal is for people to understand so that they can then, what, make better choices,
Yeah.
spend more time reflecting upon themselves. Yeah. How is it?
Yeah, the many benefits. One of the biggest benefits of understanding your birth chart is to understand yourself. It's understand what is you and what's not you, right?
Mm,
And then the next big thing from there is to then understand that you have shadow potential, and here's a way to discover that, because it's all thus each sign in each planet can show you both sides of a coin. And from there, it's really asking yourself, well, would you want to align with the cosmic energies that are planned and coming in for you for the next year, for the next 5 years? I know I would have. And it's certainly if you are planning your success as a business person or even on a personal level, to know like this isn't the time for me to do XYZ. Instead, I should be doing something else.
mm,
Many people I feel like are starting to be more in tuned with their things, but even then they're like, I had no idea that this was going to be coming up for me, and I wish I'd known. So those yearly charts that you speak of, there's a technique called annual profections that the ancient Hellenistic astrologers used,
mm,
and they basically said that uh, every year of your life one house, meaning one segment of the chart, gets activated. Okay. And so instead of worrying about what else is happening during the year, and this is what I teach my students, is just focus on the one house that is for that year of age. And now you know that these are the themes and here are what you need to look at based on this. And that gives you, many people do like their year-long plans.
Yeah.
I do mine around my birthday. I do like a quick snapshot of like, oh, okay, this is what's going to be focused for me, and then I start moving forward. And I do that for personally and professionally for my life. And the annual perfections is part of that because there's 12 houses. Like some
Mm,
people, that's one of the problems with people is they look at their chart, they want to learn this, but they want to learn all of it at
mm.
once. And you
Yeah.
can't. You can't. It's not,
It would be
especially when we're
overwhelming.
using tech, it's too much information at once. And you
Yes.
need to start from the very, very, very basics, which is what are the four elements? Do you know the four elements? Because if you don't know the four elements, then none of these things, half of this won't make sense to you.
Interesting.
Eh, Yeah. And in the elements, it's more than just like a Western astrology sense, right? Ayurvedic medicine uses the elements, although they add, I think, one more. And then other, Chinese medicine as
Right.
well.
Right.
Yeah. And so you need to begin with a starting point and start with a framework, start with the elements. Most people look at their charts. So like, I don't know. I'm like, tell me what the element balance is for you. For me, it's air and water. I'm primarily air and water. And when people learn that, they're like, oh, okay, it helps them to then categorize it, right? Our brains want to put things in boxes
Mm-hmm.
and for
Mm-hmm.
them to learn that information. And they're like, okay, so I'm primarily fire, that means I'm really fiery and active and I move forward and I need things to get done, and I'm really fast and I need to explore, and sometimes I like to show off. Like that would be super helpful for them to be like, oh, that's affirming.
Mm.
People find that annoying, but how affirming is that to know like that's what you're built for?
Mm. And maybe perhaps to know how to catch it when it's out. I mean, because right, like the elements can go get out imbalanced, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
with
Yeah.
wind, okay, if it's too windy,
Yeah,
like so bring it
absolutely.
in. Yeah.
Yep. And that
Yeah.
helps them to understand how to use the elements as a way of self-care. In fact, my friend and I are going to talk about this next week, and it's basic, and people are like, I don't know what those are. Well, guess what? We're going to share that with you. Like, what is water? The realm of emotion, the realm of intuition, the realm of dreams. We all do those things in some
Mhm.
shape or form.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I walk them through, the basics. When I'm teaching, they have a journey through my membership portal. If I'm reading your chart, I tend to want to focus more on discovery of what's coming up for them and looking at more transits than like getting deep into like the chart, because over time through activity, I get to learn about them. Um, so yeah, people have a couple options how to work with me and how to
Mhm.
navigate this. But yeah, if you're out there, if you're curious about astrology, just take it one step at a time. And you're not missing out on anything, because you're likely doing things unconsciously, doing like doing your chart. That's the thing. Like once I learned I was the Cancer Sun, Libra Moon, Pisces Rising, I was like, oh, that's why I am how I am.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I can put a label on it. I have a shorthand for it. And now I can help understand what I need, what I need to be in my fullest self. And
Mm-hmm.
when I'm really nurturing my core emotional world, which is the moon is very important. And when you understand those three things and then look to see what else is connected to them, that's when a lot of like healing work appears generally. Because when you have, that's why the lines come up, right? People are like, what are those lines?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Right.
The lines represent how the planets are interacting in your chart. And when they're red, when they're red, there's generally tension in work. And that's where the scary stuff is, that people are like, oh, I don't know if I want to talk about those things because they can be really ugly,
Yeah.
like, maybe perhaps you have a really big problem with like a substance abuse problem, or perhaps you have a big problem with your anger, or maybe perhaps you're like uncontrollable when it comes to your talking and you're obsessive, and these are all things that show up in a chart.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so it's almost like what it does is it makes someone actually go like, yeah, you can't just gloss over this anymore. Like this actually, this thing that you've been putting under the rug, it's right
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
You can either face it or let
Or
it
just
run
wait
your
till the
life,
next
right?
transit for it to get activated.
Yeah, wait
Yeah,
for the chaos or the blow
right.
up. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why people are always shocked. Like, I thought I got over this, or I thought it's like, well, you can't stop the planets from moving. In fact, the moment that happens, I'm not sure we would exist as a human species, right? Like the system would just collapse on itself.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, that's another mystery in itself, like how perfectly it's all lined up in the universe.
Yeah. So interesting. It's just like, yeah, I mean, it's so powerful. It just makes me think, when you were saying, like, yeah, we're going through this chaos. It's almost like, okay, once you know that, one, I feel like it helps to, like, okay, I don't have to take this personally. This is just what's happening. And if I can just accept fully that
Hmm.
this is what's here, and then I can navigate with just trusting in some larger process. And I think even on the personal level as well, it's like, okay, I can just trust that I'm going through this process. And it makes a lot of sense to me, like for me as someone that doesn't, and I think one of the resistances I've had to astrology, and you pointed to it, I just get overwhelmed. I'm
Hmm.
like, you get an astrology book, you're just like, yeah, this is like, like, especially for someone that's not, doesn't have like, you're a biochemist, right? Like, or you study biochemistry. Another
Hmm.
friend of mine, same thing, she studied chemistry, really like different brain, you guys can figure out like, you can quantify and calculate
Hmm.
like, oh, okay, here's the influences, how you mix it to, when they come into contact, this is what happens. Um, so yeah, so definitely such huge value in having somebody like yourself. It's like, okay, like someone like me, it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm curious. I'd love to learn, but I'm overwhelmed to have somebody kind of just take your hand. Okay, okay,
Hmm.
here, let's just the first step. We'll
Yeah,
start here, right?
yeah.
'Cause it is huge, right? It's been around for eons, the study of astrology. There's
It
so
has. It has. And there are many books and there's many ways. And I tell people, so I studied at Portland School of Astrology, and my teachers had studied themselves with other astrologers that were more traditional Hellenistic studies of astrology, which we're talking like ancient. And that framework is what the majority of Western astrology is about. And so when I started that process, knowing that there are techniques, all of this is spelled out. Like people have literally mapped out everything, the recipes, the formulas. Um,
mm,
it's fascinating how it's been preserved and passed
mm,
on, and but
mm,
it continues to evolve. One of the things I do for my students is I read ancient as well as modern astrological texts so they can hear from different voices, because it's evolved a lot. Like much of astrology back in the ancient times was very much seen as like, here's your birth chart, and by the way, this is the end all be all, like this is your karma, this is it, you're not going to ever evolve from that. Whereas modern society has changed, right?
mm,
We're no longer living in a male dominated society. We're no longer living in a society where half of society is a servant.
Mm-hmm.
right? So that those were the lens through which a lot of things were talked about back then. Whereas now you move it into the modern world, then you need to consider it through this lens, which
Interesting.
means that women are separate entity from others, right? Like when we write in books, we don't always now say we start, when things are written in books, they're not men are blah blah blah. They'll say individuals or people.
Right, right.
So I
Right.
have a lot of books and from back then that are like that.
Oh,
And they'll
totally.
and
Right.
they'll also presume the structure of a family of
Right.
man, woman, father, mother,
Yeah.
and that's not modern. So
Yeah.
there's a lot there that when you're learning astrology, you have to keep in mind that this is an evolving
Right.
language. It's an
Yeah.
it has to, because we evolve,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and things that matter to us today weren't, you know aren't that important back then, and vice versa. So yeah, it's a fascinating journey. I love it. I love talking to people. I love waking people up in this realm, and like to have them understand, or at least like there's something else happening here. Like, and I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah.
And I've read many spiritual texts and occult texts, and there's the amount of resonance and similarities of what these tools and things are talking about over the same subjects makes me wonder, like, we've done this many times. We've been here many times.
Mm.
Um, in, like, quantum physics is starting to show, like, what is this bubble that we live in?
Yeah. 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 And it is interesting and yeah, I think I think what I'm hearing you say is kind of and we'll close it up here soon, but it's like everybody wants to know, like, yeah, are we in the age of Aquarius or not? There's even like some people that are saying, oh yeah, 2027 is gonna be the year, or like
Mhm,
2030 is gonna be the year, like of like everything's gonna shift, it's like, and it kind of keeps people, it seems like a hook, you know what I mean? It's like,
mhm.
oh yeah, I want to bank on that, or I'm gonna, and it's like, yeah, let's like erase all of that and just actually, um, um, I don't know. It just seems I see a lot of that, and so when I hear you say like we're not going to see it in our lifetime, I mean, yes, obviously we know that this old paradigm is crumbling, and right, like it has been for a while. We're just seeing it kind of, it's just amplifying. So I don't think, I agree with you. I don't think we're gonna pop out in 2027 and suddenly it's gonna be new earth
No,
and
no,
everything's
no,
gonna,
no.
yeah, yeah.
No, there's so much junk out there on YouTube and TikTok that are brainwashing people. And yeah, I could have a whole conversation on that, but I would agree. I think this is part of the problem of being human, right?
Mm.
Is we don't want to also face struggle.
Yeah,
We don't want to face death. We
yeah,
don't want to face anything to do with anything ugly. We want it to be rosy and easy. We want the easy button, because suffering sucks and death sucks. But I can't. I, I would lie to you to tell you that that's not going to happen. I'm sure
yeah.
most of your people listening realize that you're going to die. Like, end of story. You're going to die. So what are you going to do between now and then?
Right, right. Yeah,
I mean, you can sit there in anger, you can sit
right.
there in like disillusion, or you can take action towards being a better human.
Yeah,
And a better
empowering
human for
yourself.
me is like,
Yeah,
yeah, like take care of your body, take care of your mind, take care of
right,
your spirit, go outside, get
right.
off the phone, don't pay attention to the internet. Like, the
Right.
internet is got its own psychological problems.
Oh my goodness. Sheesh. Yeah. Oh, well, Carolina, this has been really awesome. Share with people who are watching, like, what is the offer that you have on the table right now? How can people find you?
Oh yeah, yeah. Please join me. I have a Facebook group if you're in the Facebook world. It's questmystic.com/Facebook. And when you join there, you'll get an opportunity to grab my freebie. But if you're not on Facebook, you're welcome to grab what I call the Cosmic Year Planner. Did I send you that link? Let me pull this up.
Yeah, you
Uh,
can send it to me again.
well,
We'll post all of these links into the comments of this live. Let us know too if you're watching the replay. This will also be up on YouTube as well. So
oh,
yeah,
yeah,
we'll
here
have
we
all
go.
those links.
Yeah, so it's not the Cosmic Year Planner, but once you get on my list, you'll get access to that as well. But this one is questmystic.com/moon pod free. So moon pod free. And
Hmm.
that'll give you access to a manifestation journal that's tied with the lunar cycles.
Mm.
So the gist is to learn the cycles, to be aware of what's happening around you. I recently shared with some folks, and we can close out, and they were asking about like if the new moon, since you can't see the new moon, like the moon, the light, does that mean we don't experience its energies? And I'm like, yes, of course. Of course, we still, just because we can't see these things, just, Pluto, we can't see Pluto, but yet we're feeling it. We're feeling the transformation.
Right.
And so just because we can't see these energies visibly out there does not mean that we're not being impacted or not responding to those planetary changes. And if you ask anybody at it or ER about full moons, they'll tell you how crazy it is.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, a lot of people pass away during the full moon. I see
Mm-hmm.
it. Yeah.
Yep.
Fascinating.
Well, thank you, Tanya.
Yeah, you're so
I so
welcome.
enjoyed talking to you. Love getting into these topics. Thank you for
Oh yeah.
hosting me.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks to everyone watching. And until next time.
All right.